Oklahoma went through Murderers Row just to prove that they're the killers themselves. Lincoln Riley made the college football playoff 3 times at Oklahoma, didn't win a game. And it's because he has never fielded a defense that could just get like 2 stops a game. Like 2 or 3 stops. That's really all you need. And that was the issue with USC. Again this year. Like, when's the last time Georgia Tech went 9-3? I mean, come on now. It's still a really good year. Just a little disappointing given that this was a game that they were favored by 2.5 points in, and they just crapped the bed. I thought that Cincinnati should have had a chance to win this game. They just shot themselves in the foot. What's going on? Welcome into My Take Is. Thank you for clicking on the video. Do me a second favor and click the subscribe button. You won't regret it. We do a lot of college football stuff here on the channel. College football, it delivers every weekend. Another excellent weekend of just sitting on the couch and watching some awesome games. So let's just go in order of the big games that happened today. Sadly, no big upsets, but still important things did happen. Oklahoma beat Missouri to complete the gauntlet. Oklahoma played Ole Miss, Tennessee, Alabama, and Missouri 4 games in a row. When people say that the SEC is the best conference in the country and that it's the toughest schedule in the country, it's because there's not another conference that plays a schedule like that, where you play 4 teams of that caliber 4 weeks in a row. It doesn't happen in any other conference. And to Oklahoma's credit, they went 3-1 over those 4 games, and that's what they had to do to give themselves a chance at the college football playoff. I previewed this game earlier in the week, and someone on that preview channel commented something along the lines of, Oklahoma went through Murderers Row just to prove that they're the killers themselves. It's a great line. It's a great line, and it's so true. I love watching Oklahoma play football. Not only is it because they're a good team, it's just the way that they go about beating people. That is an old school SEC defense. It is the best defense in the SEC. They can rush the passer, they can cover, and they can defend the run as well as anyone in college football. They control the line of scrimmage on defense as well as anyone else that I've seen this year. And when you can do that, you can go beat anybody, even when your offense isn't that dynamic. John Mateer, since coming back from the thumb surgery, hasn't been as good. But he had a big play to Isaiah Satania. He had a couple of drives where they had some favorable field position, and those 2 drives resulted in 10 points. When your defense is this good, you don't have to score 30 to beat teams like Missouri. You don't have to do that. And that's a real advantage for them right now because, as I said, John Mateer, since coming back from the surgery, just hasn't been as good. And right now, Oklahoma is set up to probably host a home college football playoff game in the first round. And unless they draw some sort of offensive juggernaut, they're probably going to beat whoever they play in a pretty similar fashion to how they won today. Okay, it's going to be an ugly game where Oklahoma wins like 21-17, and their elite defense forces a turnover or two, or they get the big stop of the game, or whatever it is. Like their defense just consistently makes winning plays. And while it's not as good of a defense as Ohio State's, clearly the best in college football this year, I would put Oklahoma's defense up against anybody else. That's how good it is. And that is something that I think we're going to start seeing in the world of college football, where we kind of revert back, not entirely, but to 2000, like the early 2010s Alabama team, where they won titles because of their defense. And offenses are so advanced now that you're not going to have games that finish like 14-10. Like that's not happening. But we are going to revert back a little bit to the teams that are better defensively are the teams that have a chance to win the college football playoff. So, love this Oklahoma team. They're really good. They're super sound. They don't turn the ball over. They don't commit penalties, and they rely on their strength, which is that defense, and they have really good special teams as well. They have arguably the best kicker in college football. For Missouri, because they played in this game as well, they're going to finish the year 8-4. They're going to beat Arkansas because they always seem to beat Arkansas unless Arkansas is ranked. The last time Missouri lost to Arkansas. Arkansas was ranked 25th in the country. And I bring that up because Eli Drinkowitz is now 6-16 in the regular season against ranked opponents at Missouri. He is 7-16 overall when you include his bowl games. Here are the wins. 17th ranked LSU in 2020, weird COVID year. 25th ranked South Carolina in 2022. 15th ranked Kansas State in 2023. 24th ranked Kentucky in 2023. 14th ranked Tennessee in 2023, 7th ranked Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl in 2023. By the way, in that game, Kyle McCord didn't play. Ohio State starting quarterback didn't play in that game, and because of that, Ohio State only scored 3 points. Very important context for that. And then in 2024, they beat 24th ranked Boston College. He doesn't have a win against a top 10 ranked team in 6 years at Missouri during the regular season. He's had plenty of opportunities to do it. Now look, it's Missouri. You go 8-4 every year at Missouri, they're going to be happy. Especially with a guy like Coach Drinkwitz, who is occasionally going to run off 9-3, 10-2. But that being said, it feels like they've hit a bit of a ceiling under Coach Drinkwitz. I feel like I kind of know what they're going to be every year. They're going to be really good, but not quite great or elite on offense. They're going to have at least one really good receiver. That's not really the case this year. Obviously, Hardy, though, is he's not the best running back in college football. It's Jeremiah Love, but Hardy's numbers are as good as anyone else's, right? So they're going to have 1 or 2 guys on offense that are really explosive. They're going to have good quarterback play, and they're going to have a pretty solid defense. And they're going to go 8-4 or 9-3 every year. And they're going to beat some good teams, teams ranked in the 20s and, maybe the high teens every now and then. Maybe you beat a team ranked in the top 15. But most of the time, when they play the elite group, the 12 teams that are going to go to the playoff, when they match up with those teams, they're not going to beat them. That's what it's been like for Missouri these last 6 years. Now, with that being said, there's going to come a year where Missouri catches a break and they play Texas A&M's schedule from this year where they just luck into this thing where they consistently get to play the bottom of the conference. And they'll make the playoff that year because this is a compliment, even though it's not going to sound like it is. Coach Drinkwitz doesn't lose games that he shouldn't lose. And that is something that might cost Coach DeBoer in Alabama his job at some point because he loses games that he shouldn't lose. And when you have a coach like Coach Drinkwitz, like Coach Mike Elko at Texas A&M, where you just don't lose games that you're not supposed to lose, then when you catch that break of an incredibly easy schedule, you make the playoff and you get a first-round bye, and that's what it looks like Texas A&M is headed for. And for Coach Drinkwitz in Missouri, they just have to bide their time until that happens. When it does, they'll make the playoff. Missouri fans will go crazy, and that'll be that. They'll probably lose in the first round because, again, it just doesn't look like Coach Drinkwitz, or at least he hasn't yet. Maybe something changes. He hasn't generated a roster or a team good enough to compete at the top of college football, and I think we saw even more of that today. Bo Prabula came back. I know he wasn't 100%. No one's 100% at this point in the year. And your defense played a pretty good game. They gave up 17 points. And Coach Drinkwitz is supposed to be an offensive-minded guy, and he managed to squeak out 6 points on the road in Norman when he had a chance to log what would have been a very significant win for his resume. It would have been the best one. On the road at Oklahoma, the 8th-ranked team in the country, it would have been the best win of his tenure. And he couldn't get it. He couldn't get it done on a day where his defense definitely gave him the chance to do that. The big 3:30 game, Oregon, USC. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this because I was pretty right about it. USC couldn't get a stop. They moved the ball well. They scored 27 points against a good Oregon defense. But at some point, you have to get a stop. When Lincoln Riley was in the Big 12, speaking of Oklahoma, you didn't have to do that. You could just go score 60 and just be more efficient on offense. And when Lincoln Riley's your head coach, You're probably going to be more efficient on offense, and you can win games that way. But when you're in the Big Ten, when you're in the college football playoff, you can't do that. Lincoln Riley made the college football playoff 3 times at Oklahoma, didn't win a game. And it's because he has never fielded a defense that could just get like 2 stops a game. Like 2 or 3 stops. That's really all you need. And that was the issue with USC again this year. When they play the better teams and their defense needs just like 2 or 3 stops, they can't generate them on their own. It has to be an interception where, the quarterback of the opposing team makes a bad read, or it has to be a fumble where a guy's helmet just so happens to hit the football, and all of a sudden it pops loose, and then USC jumps on it. They've got to find a way to become more talented on the defensive side of the ball. Lincoln Riley is one of the smartest offensive coaches in the sport. He's probably going to get another look to be the head coach of an NFL team again. Okay, because he's just really smart. And look, you obviously need great players if you want to have a great team. But Lincoln Riley, on offense, can elevate good players because of his play calling and his play design. He doesn't need, a combination of 11 4 and 5 stars on offense to produce one of the best offenses in college football. He needs one of probably just a majority of 4 stars, and you can sprinkle in some 3 stars. USC's starting running back right now is a walk-on, and USC still runs the ball really well. And part of that is because King Miller is not a normal walk-on, but the other part of that is Lincoln Riley's a really smart guy who's a good play caller. I don't know how their NIL money is split, but based on the talent that I see when I watch USC play, I would assume that most of it gets spent on the offensive side of the ball, and that needs to change if that's in fact the case. Go get dudes on defense to help cover your weakness that we have seen year in and year out, and it's this inability to put a defense on the field that can just get stops. And while you're doing that, while you're investing more money in your defense, just continue to be one of the best offensive coaches in the sport like you've been ever since you showed up. And continue to elevate the offensive players that you have. That is the adjustment that USC needs to make to go from 9-3 every year under Lincoln Riley to actually making the college football playoff. For Oregon, they got healthier and they continue to prove that they're tough and they're physical. And those are 2 things in football that will always work. Kenyon Sadiq is the epitome of that. That dude's a monster, by the way. Every coach in the NFL should want that guy. Just a matchup nightmare, 2 touchdowns on the day. Let Oregon in receiving. Best tight end in college football. No questions about it. And USC had no answers for that dude. Donte Moore, big day, 300 yards passing. It's not surprising at all given how terrible this USC secondary is. And look, after Oregon lost to Indiana, everyone kind of wrote them off. And then they took a beat-up team to Iowa and squeaked out a really hard-fought game. They're still banged up, especially on offense, still missing their best receiver. But this is a team that I think is certainly good enough to win a college football playoff game. They're well coached. They've got a good quarterback. They've got a good defense. They're going to host a first-round game, it looks like. They're going to get a bye week because they're not going to play in the Big Ten title game this year. So that'll give them a little extra time to get healthy. And Oregon's really talented. If they can get healthy, they have the roster talent to go win a national title. They do. They just have to get healthy in order for that to happen. They have the quarterback. They have the playmakers. They have the defense. They've got the coach. They just have to get healthy because they're as talented as I think anyone else in the sport this year. The big game tonight at 7 on ESPN was Georgia Tech playing Pitt. They lost by 2 touchdowns. And Georgia Tech goes as Haynes King goes. Everybody knows that. And Haynes King turned the ball over twice, threw 2 picks, and wasn't as impactful on the ground as he's been in Georgia Tech's wins this year. And part of that is a tribute to Pitt and how good of a job they've done this year at stopping the run. except for last week when they played Notre Dame. And if you've watched Georgia Tech play this year, then you know that in order for them to win games, they've got to break 30. They've got to score a ton of points, and they have to control the ball. And they have to avoid turnovers. They didn't run the ball well enough today. They didn't score enough points, and they turned it over too much. Before the game against Pitt, they'd done a really good job of doing those three things. And credit to Pitt for bouncing back after a really bad week against Notre Dame. Their offense, Pitt's offense, tore up one of the worst defenses in the country, and they slowed down one of the best offenses in the country. And if you're Georgia Tech, when your defense is that bad, you can't turn it over twice, and you have to be more efficient on offense than Georgia Tech was. Georgia Tech, their defense came into the game ranked 71st or worse in basically every major defensive category this year. They were 105th in college football in total yards allowed per game, and they were 105th in passing yards allowed per game. And just like USC, you're not winning if you can't get stops. And they couldn't get stops. They gave up 42. And Pitt did what Pitt does, and more. Pitt came into the game with the 14th ranked passing attack in the country. And they were incredibly efficient today, 20-27, throwing the football. But the weakness of Pitt on offense, the fact that they're 110th in rushing yards per game, and they just kind of lined it up and ran the football all over the place. Averaged over 5 yards a carry. Their two starting running backs ran for a combined 226 yards on 26 carries. When you're getting pushed around like that, you're not beating anybody. And then you pair that with the fact that Haynes King wasn't himself and he turned it over twice. And coming into the game, and I said this in the preview video, the path for Georgia Tech to win was for Haynes King to be Haynes King. That didn't happen. And they had to make Pitt one-dimensional on offense. Because if you can make a team one-dimensional, then you have a chance because you know what they're going to do. Or you have a better idea of what they're going to do. And none of those things happened. So they lost by 14, and they likely lost out on their chance to make the college football playoff. They're not beating Georgia next week, therefore they're not getting that at-large bid, which sucks because I would have loved to have watched Haynes King play in a college football playoff game. Brent Key is, I think everybody likes that guy. That's the head coach at Georgia Tech for those who are unfamiliar, and they're going to finish the year at 9-3. Still a really when's the last time Georgia Tech went 9-3? I mean, come on now. It's still a really good year. Just a little disappointing given that this was a game that they were favored by 2.5 points in, and they just crapped the bed. Simple as that. Pitt, however, they keep their college football playoff hopes alive. Pitt, SMU, and Virginia are all 6-1 in the ACC right now. None of them have played against each other. I don't know how the tiebreaker works for that. I do think right now Pitt holds the tiebreaker over SMU. I could be wrong on that though, so don't hold me to that. With that being said, SMU I believe plays Virginia Tech, and Virginia plays Virginia Tech, and SMU plays Duke or one of the lesser ACC teams. Meanwhile, Pitt has to go play Miami, so probably going to get a Virginia versus SMU ACC title game, which who would have thought that before the year began. But if they go beat Miami, who is a good football team, by the way, they're going to have their shot to make the college football playoff at 10-3 with a win in their ACC title game. And this Pitt football team, they're good. I think they're well coached. Obviously, they can throw the football. As I said, 20-27 passing today. Coming into the game, the 14th ranked passing offense in college football. But they become a really good team, capable of maybe not hanging with anybody, but they become capable of winning the ACC if they're able to run the football the way that they did today. If that's something that continues, then I like them to win the ACC. The issue is one game's not going to change my mind. I think I like Virginia and SMU a little bit more than I like Pitt. With that being said, Pitt having a really good year. Go beat Miami and give yourself a chance to make the college football playoff. Last game here, BYU beats Cincinnati. So BYU won by 12, but if you watch the game, it's really 6. They scored a late touchdown with 56 seconds left after Cincinnati had already used all their timeouts. Why they didn't just take a knee, I don't know, but hey, more power to you, I guess. And I'm not surprised that BYU won. I took them to cover, but I did think that the game would be close, and I thought that Cincinnati should have had a chance to win this game. They just shot themselves in the foot way too many times. They missed 2 field goals. They lined up over the long snapper for BYU on a 4th down when they were going to punt. It was a 4th and 3, and when you line up over the long snapper, that's a 5-yard penalty. So that gives BYU a first down. That drive ends up resulting in a BYU field goal. Cincinnati fumbled the football away in the red zone. They threw an interception. And you're just not going to beat a team that's more talented than you are when you make 3 special team mistakes and you turn the football over twice. It's just not going to happen when you do those things. Just too many big mistakes from Cincinnati, cost them a chance to win the football game. And it would have been awesome. The field would have been stormed, and it would have been really cool. So Cincinnati, don't shoot yourself in the foot when you're playing teams that are better than you. I used to play ping pong against one of my teammates when I was in high school, and whenever he would make a mistake, he would just repeat over and over and over again. He's like, you can't make mistakes against people that are better than you. And Cincinnati did that way too much today. Too many mistakes against a team in BYU who's very well coached, who doesn't really make mistakes. And even though I think that they're well coached, I'm just not sold. I'm sorry. I still don't think that they've beaten anyone great. I know they beat Utah by 3, and Utah's ranked 12th. But Utah's 9-2, with their best win being over Arizona State, who didn't have Sam Leavitt in that game. After that, their best win was against this Cincinnati team, who's going to finish the year 8-4 at best. Okay, the one team that I know for a fact is good, that I've seen BYU play, they got blown out of the water by. And they couldn't move the ball against that Red Raider defense. And I thought we saw more problems with the offense tonight. And it's not even problems. That's not the right word. I think we saw the limitations again tonight. I'm just not sold on Bear Bachmeier. I think he's okay. I think right now of the 12 teams or the 11 Power 4 teams slated to make the playoff, I think I'd take Bear Bachmeier last if I had to, pick and order, the 11 best Power 4 quarterbacks in the college football playoff. Okay, but at the same time, he's young, he's gonna get better, but I just don't think he's quite there yet in terms of being a quarterback good enough to lead a team to wins in the college football playoff. And it's gonna be tough to beat Texas Tech or any of the other college football playoff teams when you don't have an elite presence at quarterback. It's part of my concern with Marcel Reed and Texas A&M. I'm not a huge Marcel Reed guy. And what's going to happen when you have to throw the ball on 3rd and 9 and you're down by 3 and everyone in the building knows that you're throwing the football. It's my concern with BYU. And with that being said, the one thing that absolutely jumped off the screen tonight for BYU is the way that they ran the football when they had to. When Cincinnati knew that BYU was running the football, it didn't matter. LJ Martin got the football and he picked up 7 yards or more. They just pushed Cincinnati around really whenever they wanted to. It's why they only threw the football 25 times tonight. And with that being said, I don't think that they're talented enough in the trenches to do that against the elite teams in the world of college football. That's why they didn't push around Tech. I don't think that they'd push around Ohio State or A&M or Oklahoma or any of those other teams. With that being said, they're going to have a chance to prove me wrong. They should beat UCF next week. And if they do that, they will get another shot at Texas Tech in the Big 12 title game. I'll be honest, I think they're going to get dog-walked in that game. But this is why we play the games. They'll obviously, they'll go watch the tape. They'll make their adjustments. And one way or the other, this is a team that's probably going to make the college football playoff. They'll probably have to go on the road in that first round matchup, but like it's hard for me to be overly critical, just because like you always have teams like this, and we're always going to have teams like this going forward with this 12-team format, where the teams ranked like 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. I'm going to look at and be like, I don't really think you deserve a chance to win a national title, because I just don't think that you're at that level of everyone else. That just kind of happens to be BYU this year. So BYU, I promise, I'm not picking on you. Next year, it's going to be someone different who's going to be, the 9, 10, or 11 seed in the college football playoff. So I promise, I'm not picking on you. You just kind of happen to be that team this year where you're really good, because there's like tiers in the rankings. Usually like the top 4 teams in the country, there's a gap. And then like 5 through 8, there's another gap. And then like 9 through 15 all kind of belong in a tier together. And then, 16 on down, it feels like those teams just like trade places every 3 weeks. So BYU, clearly a good football team. I just think that they're lacking a little bit of talent compared to the truly elite teams in college football. So again, they're going to have their chance to prove me wrong, and I hope they do, because I'm all for the chaos. So that's going to do it for the video. If you stuck around this long, clearly you liked something about it. Do me a favor, subscribe. Got a lot of great stuff going on here, and I'll talk to you again soon.